Louise, we do this in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First item on the agenda is to approve our agenda.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. This time we'll open the meeting up for any public comments. Restrict those comments to anything that isn't already on the agenda, please. Is there anyone here to speak to the commission this morning?
I'm Leanne Frederickson, and this, and this is Don Shepard. We are concerned about the four-way stop that has been proposed for the intersection at the B plant. I went to bed smiling last night. About 8 o'clock, I received a call that 2 or 3 vehicles, the occupants, wanted to stop at my home just off of Highway 10. I call it the Warner Road. I remember when that road was the main road, one of the main roads to Aberdeen. Why did they stop? Well, they had heard about the petition that we were circulating concerning the four-way stop. Anyway, we began to circulate this petition following last week's Brown County Commission meeting. It was circulated from Aberdeen south to Warner, and including the Warner residents and any other interested Brown County residents, and we have over 100 signatures. If it had not been for...
Leanne, I'm going to interrupt you just a second. Whoever's out there on the line, would you mute your phone, please? There's background noise coming into the chambers. Mute your phone, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Leanne.
If it were not for Gypsy Day and me having a house full of company and all weekend, I know this number would have surpassed 200. Also, it was a 3-day weekend and a lot of people were out of town. My signers wanted you to know that we are concerned about the act of putting up the four-way stop. I had a lot of suggestions. One of the most popular was, if there are stop signs from the east and west, and that's the problem, is the traffic from the east and the west is not stopping, why not patrol it? Especially at the time of day when people are going to and from work along these roads. I was told by several of my people that they had seen a patrolman at the north of the intersection, but not on the intersection. Another suggestion was a blinking caution light, a blinking caution sign from the north and the south. And another suggestion, adding a turning lane. And then, of course, a regular light. That was the most popular. North, south, east, west traffic would have equal time. Or what about a temporary light like you have during the Brown County Fair? Making it work during the hours when the people were going to and from work. And then there was one that made me smile. How about a roundabout? My neighbors and friends were very verbal. In fact, I went to the door and said, are you aware of the four-way stop? How do you feel about it? I had a couple of them that almost grabbed my petition right out of my hand. They wanted to sign it so fast. My friends and neighbors were very verbal and were very pleased to have someone that shared their interest in this part of Brown County. The people I visited with want the county commissioners to know that the Brown County residents, as Brown County residents, we are interested and concerned about what's going on in our community, and we want to thank you for listening. Don?
Which she said. Okay. Did you all get my letter and your emails? Okay. So I don't need to go there. And you saw the pictures. I thought that was easiest for those that couldn't get out there and actually drive it and see what the extenuating circumstances were. What I see, and I agree with what people were telling her during petitions, and same with the people I talked to, the biggest problem is visibility of the signage, and I think that's a big part of the problem, even coming from east and west right now. They blend in so much with the background, and they're at eye level, they don't see them. If it's going to be a four-way stop, there needs to be lighted notification. It just needs to be, because it's out in the middle of nowhere and people aren't used to it after all these years of driving through there. And the long distance straight level flats makes it hard to know when you're getting close to it. I personally think stoplights would be the best, or like somebody suggested, temporary ones like we used during fair time. But the other problem, as I showed in that one picture, is the number of semis turning and how wide they have to turn on all four sides. And long-term, that is something that needs to be addressed, because the roads and the traffic increase is just not going to work with that. So something needs to be done for the wide turns that those trucks have to take. So those are the things people are talking to me about, is you need flashing lights, you need traffic lights, you need some kind of warning before you get there, lighted, because you need to know it's coming up, especially at night, and then the problem with semis turning. So we would hope that you would take those things into consideration. People are just saying they're not even going to see a stop sign if that's all that's going to go there, and they're just going to be concerned that other sides are going to think, and now that it's four-way, they're just going to go right through, and it's going to cause more crashes than we could imagine. So that is the biggest concern, and people that I've been talking to have said. So I would hope that the county, I don't know whose responsibility is, the highway department, the county. I know you probably have to work with the railroad, just to get something done long-term and start planning that. And until then, if something needs to go up this winter, that it would at least be lighted and above eye level. Just when you're driving, it needs to be up higher. People see it when they're coming. So I would just hope that you would take those into consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Wayne, do you want to talk about the Richmond Road now on a public comment, or do you want to talk about it during the 5-year plan?
Just soon wait until the 5-year plan. We'll see if there's anything in there about it. If not, we'll give you the opportunity to speak. How's that? Anyone else have any other public comment? Anyone out there online or on the phone, not in chambers or not in the courthouse, like to address the commission? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on. David Meyer with Summit Carbon Solutions. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not David Meyer.
Okay.
My name is Dana C. Fitzlewis. I am the South Dakota Director of South Dakota Public Affairs for Summit, and I'm here with David Meyer and Aaron Eldridge, who is the project manager, and Trevor Jones, who is the regulatory affairs manager for the project. And so I want to give you a little bit of a background about myself. I grew up on a farm west of Hecla. I went to USD and got married, met my husband in college. He went to Northern. His name is Rob Lewis. He was from Redfield. He wrestled at Northern, graduated from there, and then we moved to Highmore, Elk Point. He got his master's degree. We moved back to his hometown of Redfield in 2005, and I became the first employee at Redfield Energy, the ethanol plant down there. And I was there for 17 years. I was the chief administrative officer and did a variety of things. Our CEO passed away unexpectedly in January, and so the pipeline project fell in my lap, and I got up to speed fairly quickly. I knew somebody that worked at Summit, and so he had worked in the ethanol industry, and as I was learning about the project, I also talked to several of the people that I knew in Brown County, Spring County, Hyde County, and I didn't feel that Summit was present in Northeast South Dakota. I didn't feel that the people here had a voice. They weren't being heard. And so as I would call Summit and say, you need to call this guy, he has some concerns, he has some questions, please call him, and he just never got called. So of course then, he was upset, and rightfully so. And so our CEO had passed away, and Redfield Energy is and always will be my baby. I was the first employee. Doesn't matter if I work there or not anymore, it's still my baby. And so I couldn't leave. And when had they called me in February, March, April time frame to come work for them, I couldn't have left because they didn't have a CEO in place that I was ready to leave my baby with. So when they called in August and said, what do you think about coming to work for us? I said, I think that's the right decision. I think you need me. I think the landowners in the area need me. I think the ethanol plants need me. I was the South Dakota Ethanol Producers President. I sat on a national board, and I've advocated for 17 years for the promotion and protection of ethanol, and I lobbied in Pierre and in Washington, D.C. So, I think I am definitely not an expert at ethanol, but I'm very passionate about ethanol, and that gives me the opportunity to be able to talk to people. If I don't know the answer, I will gladly find out. And so when they called me then in August, I've never felt called to do anything in my life, but I feel called to do this job. I feel like I can be the person, I'm the perfect person to be an advocate for the ethanol plants and the landowners and the investors of an ethanol plant, because at Redfield Energy, there are more non-farmer investors than there are farmer investors. That's not how it was in the beginning, but as people have sold their shares, they've transferred to their kids who don't farm, or somebody retired, and so you know, I really think that I am the perfect person for this job. And so you don't have to believe me when I say that I'm here to advocate for the people of Brown County and Spink County, but I really feel that's what I am called to do. You know, as far as the ethanol side goes, ethanol plants need this. There is too much ethanol produced in the United States than people use. We used to sell quite a bit to China, and during the Trump administration, when everything was going on with the tariffs, China stopped taking a lot of the ethanol, and so we're oversupplied. It's some supply and demand issue, and so the ethanol plants need something to make their product just a little bit better than everybody else's, because California is the one who started the low carbon fuel market, and then Oregon, Washington followed, British Columbia followed. There's a low carbon, Midwest low carbon fuels market. They're working on that, and so as people want a cleaner product, we've got to find things to supply that. And we, and I say we a lot because I've only been with Summit 3 weeks, so I'm so used to saying we at the Redfield Energy plant. You know, we've done a lot of things in the ethanol industry to find how we can lower our carbon score, and you know, the carbon score follows all the way from the farmer in the field all the way through the transportation, and we have looked at solar. Solar only reduces our carbon score by a couple of points. We in Spink County don't have a lot of feedlots like Nebraska does, and so those plants in the Nebraska area, they can produce more modified distillers instead of dry, because they feed it to the local feedlots. We don't have that, and so we have to dry some of our product and send it on the rail, and that raises our carbon score because we're using more electricity. Our plant wasn't designed to capture the carbon and sell it to manufacturing companies for food and beverages. And so, you know, there's just a lot of things that we have looked at and will continue to look at to lower our carbon score. The pipeline will reduce our carbon score from 68, which is the current carbon score, down by 30 points. And so there's nothing that we can do to lower it that much. Not even combined, we can't lower it that much. And so to keep these plants competitive, we have to do something. There's, of the 200 ethanol plants, approximately 200 ethanol plants, there will be about 70 of the plants on the pipeline. And if you're not on a pipeline, they're really going to be in some trouble, because they can't do all those things to get that 30-point reduction. And so, you know, we, the ethanol industry, will continue looking for those things, but they have to, because if they're not on that pipeline, that they have to do something. So, you know, I really believe I'm in a good situation to advocate for all of those people. I'm really serious about maintaining the values that my parents raised me with. You know, I have 3 brothers, 2 of them
Sell your soul to Saudi Arabia?
What's that?
Sell your soul to Saudi Arabia and
No.
shit like that? Is it crossing your land? You have land you can have it crossed, and all your people, investors that aren't farmers anymore, I suppose they think this is great, a big bunch of money into their...
Let's let her continue, and then we'll open it up for comments.
You know, I really, throughout the last several months, I've really heard a lot of things that are misconceptions. There have been some things that just aren't true, and part of that is because Summit wasn't here. They weren't present to give the people their answers or alleviate their concerns, and so the misconceptions just sort of ran wild. And I think I'm the perfect person to bridge all those things together. So I don't have all of the answers, I can talk about ethanol, but I don't have all the answers for ethanol. I'm definitely not an expert for that. I'm definitely not an expert on the carbon side either, but fortunately, you know, I'm working with Trevor and Aaron who do have a lot of those answers. And so I have a brand new box of business cards that I will hand out. I mean, if you have questions, call me. If you have concerns, call me. You know, I am from here. I'm always going to be a Brown County, you know, farm kid. You know, I'm proud of that. And I truly feel called to do this job. So, you know, I'm here because I want to work with you. And I know that, Commissioner Fiker, you had said last week, you know, what part of no don't you understand? And you're right. I mean, we're back again, and I really believe in this project, and I'm passionate about it. And so I want to work with you and not against you. Another thing that was said was, you know, go home. I am home. You know, this is my home, and I believe in this so much that I left a job of 17 years to come and do this. So, you know, that's why I'm here. And again, you know, these guys are the ones that can talk, and I think, you know, give us a chance. And you don't have to believe me that I'm working for you. I mean, you don't. But I'm going to work hard every day to prove it. You know, that's what I'm here to do. So. You know.
Dennis, go ahead.
Could you work on getting a list of honest investors? Who are the investors? Let's lay a form on the table that tells us who the investors are.
Well, I can tell you the investors that want their name out there. I will
No,
tell you.
I want them all. I don't want just those that sneak in under the table. I want all the investors.
I will tell you there aren't any direct investors from Saudi Arabia. They might be an investor in RDO. RDO has, what were you telling me, 40% of their investors?
Just the U.S. stock exchange. So just because a company has investors that are from a foreign country does not mean it's a foreign-owned company. So John Deere is one of our larger investors. They've made that very clear. They've released press statements. John Deere is traded on the U.S. stock exchange. The U.S. stock exchange is owned 40% by foreign investors, and nobody would say that John Deere is a foreign company just because a large percentage of investors in that company are from foreign nations. And so we have publicly announced the ones that are being announced, which are our big investors. And so South Korea, there is a company in South Korea that has invested. That's very public. But we don't have any ties we're aware of with South Korea investor, or South Korea, sorry, with Saudi Arabian investors.
Just get us an honest list of who the investors are. Bring it to the table.
Yeah, so we care a lot about the confidentiality of those we work with. That's including our landowners. So any landowners we work with, we're never going to send their name out there or tell their neighbors that we're working with them, things like that. Our goal is to work with all the landowners, and we carry that over with our investors too. We give people that confidentiality, that if they are wanting to share, we are more than happy to let people know, hey, you can reach out. But we can't provide a list of investors that have it. It's the same way, again, to reference John Deere or any publicly traded company, they're not going to give you a list of their investors either. It's up to the investors to disclose that. So we can get you a list of investors that have disclosed that, but we can't get you a list of those that have not disclosed it. But we can honestly say we do not have any direct investment from Saudi Arabia, and to my knowledge, South Korea is the only direct investment we have from any company that's not locally based or United States based.
I guess I don't believe with the money that Summit Carbon Solutions is spending, that if they want to give a list, they can make the decision whether they want to give the list of who the investors are and whether or not they don't want to give the list, and you've decided not to give the list of the investors, and we understand that now. Question for Dana, are you in favor of eminent domain?
Absolutely.
Do you know that it's going to happen?
You know, and that's one of the things that I'm working towards, is that so that it doesn't
Good luck.
happen. I would be sick if someone, you know, was in that situation. You know, I didn't get land. My brothers are going to get the land.
But is there a pipe going across
There's
it?
not.
Okay.
There's not. And, you know,
Okay.
so it's easy for me to say, you know, let's do this, because I don't have land. And, you know, I realize that. I'm very aware of that. But, you know, I'm here to work with everyone.
Sounds like you're just running interference.
Well, no, I really don't think that. You know, if you have a question or a concern, call me. You know, if you want to talk to somebody, call me. I want to take those calls. And I will get you an answer. I mean, I'm writing down, you know, the things that people have so that I can contact you directly. Because I don't know that someone always did that in the past. They were getting back to people.
I think last week, two of the specific questions that were asked by Commissioner Fiker were the location of the welds and the location of any of the intersections, the smaller pipe into the big pipe.
Yes.
And I guess I assume that that's probably what you were gonna be providing today.
Yeah, and I can help speak, and I can forward a little bit. So I'm Aaron Eldridge. I'm the project manager for South Dakota for this project. So I'm here now, working with county commissions, working with highway department superintendents, working with landowners to just help get this project in place. And I'll be here through construction and even into operation of this pipeline. So just to say that, it's important for me to have good relations with those I'm working with, because it's not a I'm here, I'm gone. I'm here longer term, and so I want to have those relationships. So one thing I can say is there are no intersections of smaller diameter pipes to larger diameter pipes in Brown County. You guys have 3 sections of pipe across this county. In the southwest corner, there's a main line. So I'll say we have main lines, trunk lines, and laterals. A main line is going to be the line that everything ties into. Off of that, we call trunk lines. Off of those trunk lines, you have laterals. Those trunk lines and laterals tie into ethanol plants. The main line takes us up to North Dakota. On the southwest corner of the state, there's a 16-mile section of main line that cuts through. On the northwest corner, there's about a 3-mile section of trunk line, that's a 12-inch line, and then right through that goes into the west side of Aberdeen to the Glacial Lakes plant up there, there's a 6-inch lateral that ties in. They don't tie into each other inside Brown County. Now, those lines, how they're put together is it's joints of pipe. The smaller diameter pipes, that 6-inch pipe, and the 12-inch pipe, those are going to be in 60-foot joints. Your larger diameter pipe, those are 80-foot joints. Each one of those joints is joined together through a weld. So if I were to provide you a map of all the welds in the county, you would just get a map of the route, because each dot is going to be 60 to 80 feet apart. So I looked it up, we did the math. It's about 2,400 welds across this county. So a good amount of welds. We have a lot of counties with additional pipes with more welds than that. But one thing we're doing, so we're regulated as a pipeline by DOT 195. That was created by PHMSA, which is the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, which is under the DOT. They have made these regulations over years and years and years of pipelines, 60-plus years, 3 million miles of pipelines in the United States, just shy of 50,000 miles of pipelines in South Dakota. They put these together. When they look at constructing a pipeline with years of experience, they've said, you need to NDT, which is test, non-destructive test, 10% of all the welds on your line. So you use it's an X-ray machine to check the porosity of the weld to make sure that is a strong weld. Summit has committed to going above and beyond many of the requirements of the DOT 195, and one of those is how we're planning to NDT our welds. So we're going to X-ray every single weld on this pipeline to verify that it holds up to the standards in place and that it's going to not be a weak point on this pipeline. So there's 2,400 locations in this county, approximately 2,400 locations in this county, that are all going to be X-rayed to verify that those welds were done correctly and that they were put in place. And if we have welders that aren't qualified, if you mess up a weld, if you have a couple of repairs, welders get taken off the project. That's something that happens all the time. It's very serious that these welds are put in place right, that they're tested, and that they're done well. And so we will have, there's going to be a lot of welds on this pipeline. We're going to have a lot of really good welders that are in place, and we're going to go above and beyond the requirements that are in place by DOT to ensure that this pipeline holds up. And then before we ever put any kind of carbon dioxide in it, you actually have to pressurize the line with water. It's called doing a hydro test to 125% of the pressure that line will be able to hold. And if there's any leaks on that line, you have to drain that pressure down, drain the water out. Once you've found that leak, cut that section of pipe out, repair it, and redo that test. So this line will be proven to be able to hold 125% of the pressure that is able to hold. And I know there was a question last week about the pressure of other lines. So our line is going to run at 2,183 pounds. That's going to be the max operating pressure. So it will be above 1,300 pounds because that's what puts us in that dense phase, which allows us to move the carbon dioxide much more efficiently through pumps instead of compressors, which goes to help lower that carbon intensity score for the ethanol plants even further. And so 1,300 pounds is what we have to keep it at. 2,183 is the max the line can hold. The closer you are to a pump station, it'll pump it up, and then it will have some pressure losses over time.
Where are the pump stations gonna be located?
So the pump stations are still in the process of getting located. There's going to be 4 in the state of South Dakota, 2 in the southern part, 2 in the northern part. We are trying to lock those down right now.
How much noise do they make?
So we were able to verify, I can't give you a decibel rating, but I know that it's no louder than the ethanol plants themselves, because each ethanol plant will also have a little pump station at it, so it won't add any additional noise, and the pumps themselves will be inside of shelters. So there will be noise abatement because of those shelters.
Are they gonna be controlled by 5G?
They will be controlled, they will have a cellular and a radio link. So I can't tell you that it's 5G or 4G, I'm more on the mechanical side than the communication side, and I'd be lying if I told you I knew. But we will have cellular and radio to be able to communicate with a 24/7 manned operations center out of Ames, Iowa. But one of the things we mentioned was that there are 5,000 miles of CO2 pipelines in the United States, and that have been operating for 20-plus years. And we mentioned that there's a 205-mile CO2 line up in North Dakota that goes underneath Lake Sakakawea, and the question was, what pressures are these other pipelines operating at? And so I looked up the actual safety response plan of that pipeline, and that pipeline, which has been running safely for 20 years, the 14-inch diameter pipeline is operating at 2,700 pounds of pressure. So 25% higher than our max operating pressure is their operating pressure. I don't know what their max operating pressure is, but that's what they've determined, that's what they put in their emergency response plan. So it's not a new technology. It's being built. Our engineering team and our construction team, this is not including inspectors or anything that we'll have on the project. This is just our construction managers and our engineering team. We have over 250 years of experience building pipelines, from crude to gas to any kind of substance you could think of. So it's a new company. It's leveraging the experience of a lot of very capable people. We're using third-party consultants to help determine. We're trying to work with counties to help determine certain things on the project, such as road crossings, and working with other companies, such as railroad crossings, on how we want to build this. So we're putting a lot of effort into making sure that this is not just done, but it is done right, and that we're trying to build and maintain those relationships with the counties and with the individuals that this pipeline affects. And we understand that it's not always convenient, it's not always easy, and so we're trying to work with landowners. We're very flexible and able to negotiate on a lot of the language in the easement to help accommodate specific requests that landowners may have for their specific land. So we're doing the best we can. There are requirements we have to follow. A question last week about the route. Part of our process of getting the pipeline is we have to file a PUC for a PUC permit, and we have to give them a route, and we're restrained to certain corridors once they have that route. So we are able to make smaller changes and help route around specific things on people's property. We're working with landowners currently to do that. We've increased our percentage in the state by almost 10% in the past probably 6 weeks of landowners that we've acquired. We're at about 46% of landowners acquired voluntarily in the state. But we are restricted to the smaller changes because we do have to have a route to submit to the PUC. So I know I talked about a lot of items there. If there's specific questions about any of the engineering or even just the project as a whole, I am more than happy to answer those questions. But I know I talked about a lot there, but if you guys have more that you'd like to ask specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer, whether that's right here, right now, or whether that's in an hour out in the lobby or outside. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions at all? Go ahead, Mike.
I've got lots of questions and issues and stuff, but one that I'd like to clarify is just currently, what is the right-of-way compensation package that you're offering landowners?
Yeah, so I can't talk dollars and cents specifically, because that does change based on the land, how the land is used, whether we're going through shelter belts, things like that. But what I can say is that originally, we had a company that came through and they used realtor data to figure out what the land was worth, and we sent out initial offers based off of that. Summit has publicly stated those offers were low. We offended a lot of people with those offers. We have since came back, and we are offering multiple times from a compensation standpoint. From a language standpoint, there's a few things that I would like to hit on that we do offer. So the first thing that we do is indemnification. We completely indemnify the landowners from anything that would happen with that pipeline on their property, apart from two things: gross negligence and willful misconduct. And we were actually, I was meeting with an attorney of a landowner group, about 30 miles of land, and they asked him, what's the difference between gross negligence, willful misconduct? And he, in the spot, could not think of a difference, right? Gross negligence is more or less willful misconduct in that case. So if you text your friend and say, I'm about to go put a hole in this pipeline, and you do, you're going to be held liable. If you are doing a farming operation and something happens to that pipeline, you are completely indemnified from that. Your insurance will not change. You will not be required to insure our pipeline. That is one of the major things that we have.
You're talking essentially actions with malicious intent.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we had language in there. We had heard from landowners that they didn't think that was enough, and we added additional indemnification language to that to help accommodate that request. We have depth of cover. So again, DOT 195, it requires us to go 3 foot deep. We're going a minimum of 4 feet deep, and we actually do have a little poster if it helps if you go to the next one with one more. There we go. So depending on the size of the pipe, the depth of cover looks a little different. And how that works is that we measure depth of cover, we segregate topsoil off. Then we take our measurement from the bottom of where that topsoil was, and we go to the top of our pipe. So if you have a 6-inch pipe with a 4-foot depth of cover, that ditch is going to be 54 inches below where the topsoil, the bottom of the topsoil. If you have a larger diameter pipe, it's going to be up to 7 feet, 84 inches below, because we're trying to accommodate that depth. So we're going a foot deeper than was required, and we are working with landowners to go even deeper than that if they have specific requests such as drain tile that we can stay beneath. Speaking of drain tile, we do guarantee the operation of that drain tile in perpetuity. So when you go through, it does damage the drain tile. We have a company called Ellingston that's out of North Dakota that we are working with, that is coming out, and they're going to do all the repairs on drain tile. Now, if a landowner has a drain tile contractor that they really like, we are willing to pay for them to use their own drain tile contractor to repair their drain tile. If you use Ellingston, what we can do is guarantee that for the lifetime of this project, if you are having issues with that drain tile, we will come out and repair that drain tile. We will ensure it is operating as it was before. The lifetime of this project. That's not a 3-year, that's not a 5-year. That's something we can do.
What about the collateral damage for crops and soil and future use of the soil?
Yeah, absolutely. So how the easement works, I'll touch on that in kind of the second part of this answer, if that's okay. So we have another little poster over there, and it talks about our right-of-way. When we're coming through a landowner's land, what we're asking for is 2 different types of right-of-way. The first one is going to be called permanent right-of-way. That's our actual easement. That's a 50-foot diameter section where we're going to have access to for the lifetime of the project. That's where the pipe gets put, that's where the pipe stays, in that 50-foot section. Then we're asking for an additional 50 feet. That's called the temporary right-of-way. What that's for is that's for us to bring the equipment on. That's for us to stockpile the soil, so we can segregate your topsoil on one side and then the rest of your soil, the subsoil, on the other side of that ditch. So we're asking for an additional 50 feet if you're on the smaller diameter pipes, an additional 60 feet if you're on the 24-inch pipe, because we need a little extra space because we have to dig a little deeper, the wider ditch, to store that soil. The temporary workspace, that goes 100% back to the landowner as soon as we are done with construction. The landowner signs off a sheet that says we've done it, we've restored it. That temporary workspace has been restored by Summit. It goes back to the landowner. That permanent easement, from that point, the landowner is able to use that for pretty much however they have been using it before. They can farm over it, they can put fences over it, they can even put little roads across it if they need to. What they cannot do is build trees with root systems inside that 50-foot easement. They can't plant those, and they can't put a permanent structure over top of that 50-foot easement. If you wanted to build a barn right up against that easement, you can. We worked with a group in Iowa that wants to develop the land. They're gonna put factories right up next to that 50-foot easement, and having a little pipeline corridor through there is a benefit, because a few other people can tie in with those companies for pipelines. But, so you can do that. Now, we do understand, when we go through, we're gonna cause at least a year that you won't be able to farm that property. So whether it's just grasslands, whether you actually farm on it, whether it's forest, and again, if it is forest, there's a shelter belt, we can accommodate and compensate more appropriately for that as well.
How do you do that?
So we work with the individual landowners to determine an appropriate price, because there is a 50-foot section of those trees that they cannot put back.
Correct.
And we understand that. And so we work with them to figure out what an appropriate price is to go through that. We have, with certain landowners, been able to go around the shelter belt. What that generally means is we're going through additional farmland at that point of theirs. And so how we pay for damages is up front, we pay what's called 240% of damages over 3 years. So it's a lump sum up front, where we pay 100%, 80%, 60%, which adds up to 240, of corn, soybean, and corn. We are working with individual landowners, because we do have I believe it's 210 bushels is what we put in the original calc sheet. And it was at, I think, maybe 610 per bushel. I know that price is higher. I know some landowners get higher yields. We are able to adjust for the landowner based on the cost and the price of corn and soybeans, and we're also able to accommodate higher yields in that. So what you say, you're signing that off after 3 years. So you can't come back to us within 3 years and say we're not getting high enough yields, whatever. You can't do that. We pay for that up front. After 3 years, we do offer, if you can prove that you are getting lower yields in the section where our pipe is, from right next to that, we will pay the difference in damages. So how we do that is you take your yields next to it, the yields you get on that property, the difference of those yields times the price of corn times the amount, or soybeans, times the cost per bushel or per acre, whatnot. We pay that to the landowner. That's the lifetime of this project as well. So there's a lot of things. We understand it's really inconvenient to have a pipeline come across
So
your
what do
property.
you do about a tree grove that's a windbreak for a farm and cattle operation? Are you gonna build a windbreak in there to compensate for the trees?
So when,
Or are you just screwed forever on that deal?
And like Solon, you said something also about you could put a building by this, so I haven't got to the safety side of this BS yet. But I wanna put a barn out here some, that's why these trees are planted, so you get to bulldoze through there in 2 damn places and completely wreck the future of my farm, because you got a pipeline going through the whole damn, right by my house. And someday, the plan was to put a couple miles slope or, tarp barns up there, but now that whole thing goes. And like you said, they wanna build these factories next to it in towns. What about the safety side of this whole thing? So safe, you guys all stand in the plume cloud, and it sounds like this whole thing will be taken care of. So you guys know this is just a line of shit, and when you guys get 3 years on, 4 or 5 years on, and this company gets sold, what about the liability then? Is that gonna go to the next guy when they start to use this to frack? Because that's the end goal with this whole damn thing. We know that, and we'll go to California. You guys know California's end goal is to be all electric. It's a real good idea to base everything we wanna do off of them. We see how they're running our electricity and stuff now. So, no, you guys say a lot of real contradicting stuff. I mean, we're really wasting these commissioners' time, if you ask me. You guys are gonna strictly base everything off this eminent domain thing, and that's all you care about. You just...
In listening to you, it sounds like this is a done deal. You're gonna do what the hell you wanna do it, when you want to do it. If you can't find enough money in the United States, you'll go to some other country. And I've been to a lot of them, and they don't like us anyway. They're looking for a way to get a foot in this country so they can run this at some point. But the way you're talking right here, it's a done deal. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, it's all over.
Start
The hell with
planning to
the
go around
farmers.
their farm too, then you said you
Hell
go
with the
around
first
trees and
responders.
stuff. Just talk the way it sounds.
Yeah, so what we are trying to do is we are trying to work with landowners to accommodate specific requests as needed. And what I would ask is that I'm sure if you are a landowner, you have had a land agent reach out. And for a lot of people, the land agent reaches out and we never hear back, or the phone gets hung up, or we get told to never call back. It's really, really hard for us to listen and respect that, and also try to help accommodate requests that the landowner
Like
may have.
65% are that same way. If you got 45% allegedly, I know a lot of people, and I don't know who you got, like where these numbers come from, because up and down the states all over, it's just people against people against people against. And if we want to go to, oh, I'm a hometown farm girl all at heart, all this crap, well, the farmers would kind of be behind this if this was this good a deal. You got a heck of a good pay raise, and it's pretty easy to run around and do this. There's no doubt. This stuff is all tied together. It's all three in the chairs back there, all the same damn way. So, I don't know. Should we be here next Tuesday? We gotta keep doing this, or what's the plan?
Yeah, and our plan is to continue to work with counties as we can and continue to work
You
with
gotta come and
landowners.
sell yourself every
to
week
ensure-
and say how good this is. If it was that good, it'd be obvious.
Well-
Common sense thing.
Yeah, and Dana touched on it. What's really unfortunate is that Summit was not able to get up here, and we just didn't prioritize getting up here and making our presence known and being able to communicate with people. And so it does sound like I'm trying to sell this project. What I'm genuinely trying to do is talk about what this project is and what we are doing, because there is a lot of information out there, some of it good, some of it bad, flying around on what's going to happen here, or what would happen in this case, or with
Facts.
different
Those
things.
are facts. It don't
And
look
so-
good for you guys.
What I'd love to be able to touch on the safety aspect of the line, if that is, I do want to respect the time of the commission.
Dennis, do you have a question?
Well, I just, this whole thing's about money. I mean, there's no question about it, that all of your bosses, all of the big money is what's pushing you people to do what you do. You're getting paid super, you wouldn't be here doing what you're doing. I'll go right back to what I said last week. What part of no does Summit Carbon Solutions, what part of that don't they understand? Don't waste your time coming in here. We've all signed a document that says we don't want the pipeline in Brown County. So why are you wasting our time and your time coming in here? Go home. And when we want you to come, we'll call you.
And I appreciate you sharing that, and just,
Well, thank you, then you don't have to respond.
Any other questions for these people?
Can I say something? I mean, thank God our farmland down in Spring County is not being affected by this. But we also have pasture and a farm up in North Dakota that was affected by other things coming through our property that we were promised would be restored to its original condition. That's a bunch of BS. We spent the next 5 years where they had dug through, spraying weeds, getting weeds. The grass quality was shot. They cut through our fence lines, and these were supposed to be reputable companies, okay? So that's a big part of the problem, is you're a brand-new company, you have no track record, we don't know who your contractors are that are going to be using these people that are being affected down here, and they don't trust you, because any company, I'm sorry, and I think everyone feels the same way, when we hear the words eminent domain, and a company has to go to that extreme to take what they want from somebody's own private property that bought and paid and worked for all these hundreds of years, and a lot of them brought down from families, generations, you lost all trust and faith from the landowner immediately. The word eminent domain means you're going to take what you want, when you want it, how you want it, without regard to how it's affecting the landowner who bought and paid for and owns that piece of property. You're going to take it for your personal use.
For
And you're-
private gain.
Yes, exactly. So that's,
A lot of this
I'm sorry,
land,
that's where people have just stopped listening.
a lot of this land was deeded land, years and years and years ago. And in my case, it was deeded to my grandpa. It doesn't say anything on Summit. This is private property. There are several different trespassing laws in the state of South Dakota. One of them says, if I tell you to get out of here and you don't get out of here, things are gonna happen. That's about where you're at here, because you started out, and I know you guys aren't driving the train, you're just one of the cars.
All right, does anyone else have any questions? I think over the past several weeks, we've provided a public forum for Summit to pitch their case. I think the best plan going forward, pass out any business cards to anyone in the audience that may need additional information. Anyone here that has concerns, which I know a lot of you do, reach out to these people, ask the questions of them. They may want to set up a separate meeting outside the Brown County Commission so that you can get this word out to more than just the people that have taken time to come in here on a regular basis and hear it. So I know for everyone that's in there, there's probably 5 that aren't. So the best plan going forward may be to organize a meeting locally so that you can involve all the concerned and affected landowners, answer their questions, address their concerns, but get business cards from these people, reach out to them. They seem to be willing to answer questions, and they've provided us with some additional information this morning that we just got. I haven't had a chance to read it, but with that, I think we've probably touched enough on this issue. We appreciate everyone taking time again out of their day to come in and hear what they had to say and ask the appropriate questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Dwayne, I do got some handouts if anybody would like it.
Okay, if anyone wants to get cards or information, they'll be available out in the hall. How's that?
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. All right, next on the agenda, approval to apply for local assistance and tribal consistency fund. It was in the packet, something we need to apply for available funds.
It would be, additional 50,000 this year and another 50,000 next year, it's coming from the US Treasury.
Looks really simple.
Hopefully. The only thing it cannot be used for is lobbying,
Okay.
so.
Otherwise, no strings attached.
Great.
Okay.
I'd move it.
Okay, motion by Fikert, second by Gaze to approve the application for this assistance. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Sign that application. Next up, we have Dirk Rogers to present his 5-year plan, highway plan.
You're late.
Morning, Dirk.
Been here a long time.
Come on in, gentlemen. Next wave.
Good luck. Got all your hats pinned down good for the wind coming up this afternoon?
A lot of dots on that map.
Yeah. Should I turn off the, those are the street signs, or show you which road it is.
Oh, okay, those aren't projects.
No.
Okay.
Probably all potholes.
Yeah, I don't think we gave you enough money.
No. That's what they're big holes.
Is that all the taller you are, or could you got it a little bit higher? So we can all see it.
You can't see it from here anyway. What are you worried about?
If it was a stop sign, you couldn't see it either.
This is the spending side, you don't care about this.
Try and keep a sense of humor.
About which thing?
Like,
About which thing?
all of it.
Oh.
Everybody get a chance to sign in?
that signed up on here? That was in here? All right, so I'll start, this is the, let's flip it over.
Met.
It's our 5-year public meeting that's required to stay eligible for our bridge funding. So, I think the first thing I wanna look at is a sheet I didn't give you. That's pretty handy. But this is sort of the report on last year. So this is part of the requirements. I have to explain anything that didn't get done, why it didn't. And then,
Life happens.
yeah,
Doesn't it?
thank you. So if you look at that, this is the annual update. So originally we had Road 5 from 396 to 402, and that's on the, up in the Hecla area. We ended up paving, just 2 miles of it. We had some concerns from the folks in Hecla, and we ran a hydrology study up there, and a 2-inch overlay on the low part of the road raised it 700ths, and they had concerns about that. So we just kind of pushed it back, that part of the river bottom, so we paved the rest of it. And, we're probably gonna have to look at a couple different ways to address that elevation change. We'll either end up watering it so we don't raise the elevation of the road, or we'll have to throw some pipe in there. It's probably easier to blotter it, but we'll see what happens. And then the same part of that is 4 to 406, those 2 miles that are on the other side of 5 up there at Hecla. It's been gravel and goes underwater about every 3rd year and all that. We just had to kick that down the road a little bit until we come up with a better plan for that. Since they closed that drainage ditch up there, it's made that water significantly worse over by town.
So should we start calling that Spillway Drive?
Yeah, pretty close. Then Road 23 from 406 to 412, we got that done. Road 5, we didn't get the asphalt on it, which was probably good because we wouldn't be able to afford it this year anyway. But it's gonna be even worse next year, but we split the project into 2 pieces. So this year ended up being all the substructure work, and next year they'll get overlaid. That's a project we've been out in the spring. Then we got the 2 bridges on there. Bridge 211, that's actually, I believe, starting today. They're gonna start ripping it out. The road's been closed up there for about a week. And then Bridge 271, both those get moved into next year. I still haven't got the right-of-way sorted out on Bridge 271, that's the one at Sand Lake. So that's a quick update on things we did last year.
Are we getting close on that, or are we working on it?
Yeah, I'm having trouble communicating with them and getting back the right format to make everybody happy, but,
It'll happen.
oh yeah, it's not a real roadblock. We're just they're trying to figure out how, the government can't give up land, so they wanted the bridge moved off their property, but that's not gonna happen. So we're trying to work out a permanent perpetual easement thing with them, is probably what we'll end up with.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. Let's go to bridges next. Of course, the other form I didn't hand out yet. Just to run you through what, how these are looking. So what you're getting here is, you're just getting the top, about 20 worst bridges, because the rest of them are fine. I'll show you. If anybody else wants these, I don't know that I got enough for everybody, but. So starting on those, just quick, if you look at my sheet here, I don't have a color copier. So,
Not my fault.
you come down to, that first batch of bridges, that's what you're looking at there on your sheets, and the numbers I've written off to the left. So, those first 3 on there, Bridge 6, that's the one that's in Edmonds County. It's, I don't know, it's across the county line, it's our bridge. And those ones that say no, I don't really have a plan for replacing them. They're either gonna just go closed, or there'll be alternative things, but they're pretty obscure ones. And then you get down to that Bridge 93 and 145, those are in the general, one's south of Groton and one's east of Groton. I have them asterisked, they're gonna get replaced, and those will be Holloway bridges. I just haven't got it figured out. The prices on materials right now, a lot of folks know, are out of whack, so those aren't super critical, and they've been posted a long time, so we'll get them worked in somewhere, but those will be done outside of the bridge project. That 142, you can't hardly get to it. Well, that'll eventually just get closed. 206, that is the one in the middle of Elm Lake up there. That's programmed for 2024, and that's a different set of bridge money. That was some federal, it's called federal local bridge money. That's the one we amended that resolution the other day. The state used that extra money that they appropriate out of the legislature to get that down to like a 5.4% match or whatever it was. And that's the one that's in Elm Lake, and we were also able to raise that up a couple of feet, without affecting the amount the county had to pay, so that worked pretty good. 271's the one at Elm, or at, Sand Lake. 234 is the one 2 miles north at Tacoma Park. It's over the Jim River. You know, the west side of that road's underwater about half the time, so I don't foresee that getting fixed or replaced. The next one there is a new bridge. 269, you know, the ones that have no, those are pretty obscure, and I can go into detail with you on them, but they're ones that there's not a lot of value in them. And then the ones with the numbers, Bridge 17, Bridge 48, those two are not in any impending, one of them's a bridge outside of Warner, and the other one's right south of town on 14. They're currently posted to straight trucks, but you can still go across them with semis. And those are on the list so we can apply for grants for them. If you don't have them in the program, when the time comes, we can't apply for them, so that's why they're in there. There's not really any impending things that are gonna change with them, but I wanna have them on the docket. And then 211's the one up at Frederick. That's the one that's actually starting today. So that's as you can see, this one, we have another sheet that continues to be green. We have 140 bridges, and these are the ones that are in trouble, and about 2 of them are eligible for funding, right now that they're not eligible for funding yet. They will be in the near future, but outside of that, we just don't have a lot of them to run through the bridge program right now.
So in general, we're either making improvements depending on the circumstances, because each one of them is a different situation.
Always, yeah.
Where it's at, whether it's widening it or putting a box in or whatever the case might be. We don't need to get into the weeds about that, but.
Yep, they're pretty much case-by-case basis. In some cases, we'll even visit, you know, if you have one that's been posted for 20 years and it hasn't been a problem, then you don't really need to invest money in it, I don't think, but. Okay, so now we'll go to your 5-year program. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to go over here and stand by my map, that's hard to see.
He hid it from me.
Yeah. So if you look at, this is what's coming up in 2023, and just 'cause, you know, these are big picture things, these are all either 2-inch overlays or more, or bridges. There's no maintenance in here. This is, you know, that's how we've always done our plan, because it gets pretty busy for, I guess you're new, but, in the spring, then, once we get our asphalt prices and once we have a little better idea of stuff, then I'll come back and I do a meeting that's specific to next year that includes the maintenance and stuff then.
We always wait to see what Santa Claus brings and what blows up in the spring, right?
Yeah. Okay, so first thing on there, again, I'm beating it to death, but that bridge 211 up here. Should've made the map bigger. That's just one of our big bridges. And then, this is really simple. So this is the one that's milled up right now, so we're kinda committed to paving that back. And whatever that costs, everything else is gonna go on 16. And this piece here, which you can, if you look on here, we've got, Road 5. Once we get our asphalt prices for our FOB mix, and then we'll bid that project about the same time, and then that'll kinda dictate how much we're gonna get done on 13 and 16, these 2 pieces here. And outside of those 2 bigger projects, and then the 2 bridges, which is the Sand Lake Bridge, and this one, and that's it for our big money stuff. Those things right there are gonna be about $7.5 million probably. We do get 80% of that one we'll get back, we'll have to have a conversation about the budget, because we got some anticipated revenues that are in there, that if they don't show up, then we're not obviously gonna spend them, but, because both of these are reimbursement projects, this one and this one, where we gotta pay the whole thing up front, and then we get some money back.
Refund them.
Get most of it back. So that's 23. Everybody keeping up all right?
Yep.
Both the mics okay so far?
You want a second opinion?
No. Okay, so 2024 is the orange stuff, and the other thing is, this is really conservative. I'm assuming things are gonna be bad. Right now, 5828 road oil that you make hot mix out of, 2 years ago was $4.50 a ton, and this morning it's like $10.20 a ton. So it's more than doubled in 2 years. And a lot of that increase has happened since we bid ours, because we bid ours prior to the Ukraine getting invaded, and then things went really bad. So my 5-year plan's pretty conservative. You know, we can change it as time goes on and figure stuff out, but, so the orange stuff is a little bit of mop-up work for 2024. 9 has been waited to get paved about 5 years, and that bridge is a long story, but it was posted and then not posted and some different things. But that one, 20 north of Claremont, we have 4 miles on 21 that's been sitting there, with 1 mile of that paved for about 6 years. And then 27 down there west of Mansfield. And then that year we'll have the bridge up at Sand Lake in 2006, or
Which lake?
Elm Lake, 2006.
Thank you.
Or Bridge 206 in 2024. You can see on there, that's the one, 850,000 of that's coming from the feds and 190 from us. 2025 is the green stuff. This thing is really bad, but hopefully we can get a good chunk of that. 12E, and there's one more. What am I missing? Oh yeah, down here. Oh no, that's it. Like I said, it's pretty conservative. So in 2025, you just have those 3 overlays. At this time, I don't see, other than those 2 bridges I talked about that we're sticking in the program. Right now, there's nothing, there's no other bridges later on in the times there. I know I'm jumping around. Everybody okay so far?
So far, good.
2026, and you know, you're kinda guessing when you get this far out, but we got, the rest of this, if it isn't done before that, if we end up watering it, we might throw that in there, but I did put, Road 5 is in there to pave that bottom, and that's if we have to do something to address the rise in the elevation. If we gotta put pipe in there, it's gonna take longer. Got, 14, from 14E to 23. Where the hell am I? Oh no, I jumped into the wrong year.
Yeah, you're still on 26.
I'm still on 26, that's how much I wanna get this over with. So we got 20, okay, start over, Road 27 in 2026, and then I have that Warner Bridge in there. I'm just waiting for it to go completely posted, but that may or may not happen anytime soon, but that's just in there so we can apply for it when it comes. Road 18, that goes all the way down from there, but it should only be 4 miles. And then whatever we don't have up here at that time. That's 26, and then we'll go to 27, which is the purple stuff. We got 16. I don't really think that road's gonna last that long, but we'll see what happens. we may have to do a intermediate blotter in there to get it to last 16, and by then 14 will be ready. And of course, it's got that bridge in there on 14 if that comes. That's about it. Like I said, it's pretty conservative because I want to, kind of go slow here, and see what happens with everything. So first, if the commissioners have questions before we take them from the public.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Pretty simple compared to some here.
Are all of our bridges inspected annually, or some of them on 2 years?
Most of them are on 2 years.
Most of them are 2?
Yep, there's, it's on a different sheet, but, like, for instance, there was 2 this year that they just are moving to a 1-year inspection, so once they get down to a certain point, that if the engineers have concern about it, they usually call and go, hey, you got a problem if we move this to an every year. As you might guess, that's on pretty bad structures. So those are the ones that are down at the end of the line, and I always want them to keep them open in whatever capacity they can, as long as possible, even if it's only a 3-tonner, you know, so.
Question. What's been the availability of road oil this year with what, you know, we bid and stuff? Are they allocating, or where are we at with that as far as supply is concerned? I'm just curious.
Talking 2 different groups here. So the asphalt, you know, the stuff where you're making hot mix with hasn't been too bad because we're just buying it, right? The contractors have to deal with that. Our road oil availability, if we're willing to be a little accommodating, hasn't been bad, but it's they started off with some of the bigger folks kinda had, I don't wanna call them rations, but I mean, you need 4, we can get you 2, or we'll get you 3.
Everybody's allocating stuff. Doesn't
Right.
make a difference if it's concrete or whatever it is.
And then it's kind of twofold because there's places where they had material, they had trucks, and they don't have drivers. So they got everything, and then there might be another place that has a different problem. So its availability is not ideal. I think we were able to get everything we needed, and just as a side note, we got all of our storage tanks are full because our prices are still even cheaper, you know, earlier this year to what they are today. So it hasn't been awesome, but you know, we didn't run into any direct problems outside of what limits you have because of the cost, you know.
Okay. Well, I was just curious, because I know the road oil is, you know, byproduct of the refining process, you know, no different than, for instance, just not bringing anything else up, but if you're refining ethanol, you also have dry distiller's grain, you have, you know, corn oil, and the rest of those kind of things. And if you're not doing the raw product and the primary part of it, you know, a lot of the refinery that used to get done, and a lot of it, the capacity shrunk for a variety of reasons, we won't get into that. But, you know, it's interesting that we want to get away from using petroleum products, because I won't call them fossil fuels, because that's BS. They're petroleum products, but the refining process of taking petroleum products and refining it into gasoline also is where we get road oil and a lot of the other byproducts that we do things with. And if we're shrinking that capacity and intentionally dropping that demand and increasing the price, it has this same effect when it comes to being able to build the roads that we're going to drive whatever the heck we're driving on.
The road oil gets in the back of the line too. When you have limited refinery capacity, obviously they're gonna crank out diesel first and gasoline second. And then, you know, when everybody's kinda caught up enough, and that's exactly what happened after Hurricane Katrina knocked out the refineries in the Gulf. It took 2 years to get the supply back reasonable for road oil, and then a little longer for the price to come down.
So anyway, I was just curious on bigger basis there, where availability was with that, you know, even though the price is 4 times more.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I was actually talking to them this morning. We're trying to, you know, because so much of, like, for instance, next year is tied to the price of asphalt, in terms of what we'll be able to do. I'm trying to see if we can find a soft spot somewhere to bid this stuff, but it's not looking real awesome right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions from the commission before we open it up to the audience? All right, Neil, did you want to,
Well, I can be the point guy.
okay,
We were here a few months ago, brought you a petition of the people that are on the road, and, asked you to come up with a plan for our road. I mean, and the road is the worst now it's ever been. It gets bladed, and there's no gravel left, it's just garbage, and in a day and a half, it's all washboardy. The weeds aren't even, mowed on the side of the road, the deer, you can't even see them coming, and the road's worse than it's ever been. And we got more traffic than we've ever had on that road. And it's a safety issue, and it's a fact that we're getting taxation without representation, is what's happening up there. And we're not getting taken care of, and we're paying high taxes. And there's roads that are getting paved that get 1/4 the traffic on it, got brand-new pavement north of the fairgrounds, past Richmond Road. They did a whole mile, and there's probably 50 cars a day on that stupid road. And ours is close to 300, and we've had nothing done. We wanna know what the county's gonna do for us.
you're talking the east-west stretch, right?
I'm talking the east-west stretch, 4,000 lousy feet of asphalt. We're not asking for the moon. And I'm tired of hearing about, we don't have money and we don't have this. If that's the case, then cut my property taxes in half, because I'm not getting anything for my money. Does anybody else agree to have more to say?
No, I think it's the same thing, that road is hazardous. Right now, you get on the road, and if a piece of farm equipment comes, I don't know, some of those equipment's gonna go off the road, or something's gonna go off the road as driving, and it's just really tough. And we've been here before, I mean, not to be placed on the 5-year plan. I probably would ask Dirk, are you looking at a 10-year for us, 10 years to do something like that? But
That project wouldn't show up on the 5-year plan,
why not?
because I don't go into that much minutia in the 5-year plan.
So if you don't have it on a 5-year plan, what do you get, when can we look at it? I mean, is that something that could happen in 3 years now?
I mean, I've said it several times, it's not something, the road is what it is. It's a gravel road right now, and I know Neil will be real pleased with that, but, that's what it is. So,
It's garbage.
Yes.
Yeah, we've outlived one 5-year plan already, out there, We did get the bridge, but it took about an extra 2 years after.
I think it's a liability issue for the county. You come in the morning, driving into town, can't see a thing, and the blades driving in the oncoming lane, plowing the roads. Coming up those hills, you come over the hill, you got a blade right in front of you.
Can't even see them until you come over the hill.
Yep.
And that blade is out there, 3 times a week. So your labor rate there, to operate that blade is a lot of dollars right there, so.
Well, the other problem is it gets so dry, you can blade it all you want, it ain't gonna do a bit of good, it's just bouncing over the top of the washboard.
Yep, that's true.
I just talked to the state, Dirk can take this where he wants to take it, but they're gonna have a lot of asphalt millings left over from all the work we're doing on Highway 12. So there might be an opportunity for the county to at least put 2 to 3 inches of asphalt millings, which would cut the dust in half, and it would definitely help the washboard, because there's no aggregate left on that road. It's just ground up garbage. And that's why it's so terrible dusty.
What's gonna happen when they start on the dam?
Yeah, good question. Is all the traffic gonna come around that way too?
I don't know, they haven't come up with their detours
But it
for
sounds
that
like they're
yet.
gonna widen the dam, so how are they gonna do that without blocking the road?
I haven't seen anything like what they're doing with the dam yet. You would know more than me
I
probably.
talked to the state the other day. They won't have the plans till the end of next third quarter.
Yeah.
2023, they said they'd get back to me. But if they do block that road, I'm gonna tell you right now, that other road is destroyed. We won't even wanna drive on it. There'll be nothing left. And another thing is, there are so many semis running that road right now, they're just destroying it. And I understand. farmers gotta get their crops to town. And that's their main road. There's no other way to come across there.
But it's kind of a flippant response to say it is what it is.
Well, I didn't mean it quite like that. What I meant was,
It came out.
well, I apologize for that. I didn't mean to say it is what it is. It's a gravel road. And,
It's not very good.
you guys have your opinion about it, and
You got
we blade it too
another
much.
opinion? It's not a bad road?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's a bad road in public, Gene, come on.
Okay, I understand.
You gonna say it's a good road, Dirk?
I think if you drive it at a proper speed, yes.
Right.
Go ahead and drive it now.
Go drive it now.
Go drive it today.
Drive it today,
All
yeah.
you guys
Drop
get in
down
your
the
car
road.
and just go down that
Right.
damn road, you'll be all over the place.
Okay.
I mean, it's
25 miles an
I
hour.
just wanna finish clarifying that. What I should have said was, it's a gravel road, okay? It's a gravel road, and I have gravel roads and we have hard surface roads.
And it
And
was
that's,
paved.
yep,
Yeah, what-
along with 186 other miles, that map's
Sounds right.
laying right there, so,
By the way, we're missing a stop sign, I don't know if you know that as well.
Both of them are gone.
we're at,
They're blown off, right off of the
we're
bridge road.
at, which corner?
Coming on to 13,
Off of,
13A.
so coming from the north, that one's gone. And the one from the south is gone
Yeah,
as
it's
well?
gone too, they're both gone.
Okay.
And then I know that when we were out at the lake, when you had that commission meeting out at Richmond,
Yep,
there was a statement made that you were working on some guardrails as well.
yep.
Is
And
that
that's,
still in the?
yep, that's going. We had to change the design of it to get it funded a little bit. So it'll be the W rail beam as opposed to the, like the one over on the spillway,
Sure.
the cables.
Yeah.
It won't be that. It'll be the W rail. So that it has to do with how they tie it into the bridge and all this stuff. But that's for next year. It's a state project. It's in the step for next year.
That'll be done next year,
Yep.
2023, okay.
Hypothetically, if they're gonna close that road when they rebuild the spillway, what's gonna be done with that road on Brown County 13 going over the west bridge? I mean, is there a plan in place where, okay, they're gonna close it, we have to plan for this, is there gonna be required to be a haul, like, I don't know what it's called.
Bypass road.
A bypass or whatever, I mean, is there something to be done to it then?
Can we get the money that's going for the dam to pay for that?
Possibly, but again, I am not privy to what the whole scope of that is. I haven't heard anything other than they drilled their holes, and we've helped them with some of that. So until I know what the scope of that is and what's gonna have to be closed, and then part of that process will be addressing the detour, or however people get to town. I'm also gonna assume that there's, whatever that township road is up there, they may wanna improve some of that on the north side, that goes straight east off the curve. When we had that closed in 2001, that was another way that a lot of folks went. So, but it's hard, those things will be addressed, but it's hard for me to do it right now. Neil just said the plans aren't coming out till third quarter of next year, so hopefully by then, we'll have some conversations with them, but the conversations I've had about that project have been specifically to the subsurface, so they could go out and drill on the road and some traffic control for that and some of that stuff, but I haven't heard anything about what they're actually doing there.
Dennis, go ahead.
Well, I don't wanna throw Dirk under the bridge, under the bus on this deal, but he, specifically told us that when the 5 commissioners tell him to do the project, that then he'll go ahead and do it. And so, as you folks know, I've always been in favor of it. I think it needs to be paved. I use it more than the rest of the commissioners do. It's dangerous, there's no question about it. I mean, there's very, very steep on the shoulders, hilly, very dusty. It needs to have something done to it, permanent. So it's, and in response, Neil, to your comments about the taxes, we all pay a lot of taxes. The thing that most people don't realize is that 60% of it's going to the schools. And the county's only getting about 20% of it.
I
And
know
so,
the formula,
yeah, so you gotta be honest about it, that, the county doesn't have an overrun of money to shove into the highway department budget, because 4 years ago, we stripped a couple $1 million out of Dirk's budget. 3.5 million, and it was because of the trouble that the county's in as far as overall funding. But that does not change my feelings about the need that something needs to be done on that road. So if I can get the support from the rest of the commission, we'll give Dirk the order, and he can go out and pave the road. So that's where I'm at.
And the possibility of the millings, like Neil said, from the upgrade on US 12.
Because we put millings over on my private road in front of my house, and it cuts the dust in half.
Maybe an option to consider.
At least in the meantime, until it can get paved, because Dirk knows as well as I do, is if that millings are laid down, and the asphalt is gonna stand up that much better if it was put on top of it.
Well, the problem is there's no binder left there.
There's no binder left now.
There's plenty of aggregate there, but the binder's all gone.
It's all
Nothing's
fine.
tied
It's all
together, it's
ground
just
up.
all over the place. And you can't cut it deep enough it needs moisture in order to bring anything up, to get any kind of a decent blade job. You could be on there with a blade every morning and every night.
Hammered.
And 50 cars go over it, and it's gonna be right back in the same shape, so. And now is an especially bad time because of all the fire trucks that are on it. It's really bad.
Commissioner Weiss?
Were we able to make any progress on improving the drainage down that ditch where that bowl is at, in that high spot in there, because of the state land next to it? I know that was an issue, but
Yeah.
get access and
I can't
shape
remember.
that.
We did something up there, but I don't know if we gotta go back again. I don't know if we got it all addressed,
Because
but.
if and when we're gonna do something to improve the surface of that's an issue that's, the base.
It's draining pretty good now after Dirk cut that slot in there. Made a big difference.
We gotta clean it up somehow.
And probably the worst spot you got is over there where it goes into the lagoons. It's
Yep.
catching that, it can't get down to
On that, where the
river.
approach
He
goes
did
in
a
there.
good job on the west side, but the east side's holding water on that approach.
Okay.
So we got some work there that we can do short term to try and take some of those soft spots and relieve some of that for the base that's in under there. And I think it's reasonable to see what the state might have for millings, because we have had good luck, and it's, asking to be patient. We've had good success working with the state on their projects when they're doing.
Well, we milled a
Right.
25,000 ton we milled up.
Right, but for instance, just last year, they went ahead and put a new surface on Prairie Wood Road for us because we allowed them to use that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which saved us a considerable amount of money and gave us a huge improvement on what that particular stretch of road was. And I'm hopeful that we might be able to work something with the state.
Well, it'd be nice if the state would come to, a lot of that road is bordering their property past
Right.
the boat ramp. So why wouldn't the state want to improve anything to a public access area that people, you'd be surprised how many cars go park out in that area where they ride their bikes and
Yep.
stuff all the time.
Well, short term, it's not good, but long term, it might be best if you and we lobby them to use that as part of that project in exchange for helping us with some improvements for it.
Because they did the same thing up on Brown County 9 when 10 was closed. That was a designated
Right.
detour, so they paid the...
Well, I think the detour comment that's a real possibility.
Might be our best bet.
So, who you pointing at? Oh,
Brother Dave, you can come
Yeah.
in and sit down, there's a chair for you there.
it's right on time.
Is it warm?
Any other comments for Dirk? Any questions?
Well, I think you know our concerns, and we just want something taken care of, because what could happen is if something bad had happened on that road, you guys have totally been aware of it, you can't say you didn't know anything about it, and you could get sued.
We are
It
aware.
is a bad safety issue, bad. Go over there in the morning sometime when the sun's coming up and you can't see a blasted thing in there. Nothing.
Oh, it's the same thing at 5:30 in the
It's just
evening
as
going
bad in the
west when
evening,
you're
you're
going
right.
back
If
out.
there's
you
no
can't-
wind, it's the worst thing.
You can't see a thing.
Yeah.
Got one commissioner that was willing to speak up, the other ones here wanna go on the record and let your opinion be known. We got an election coming up.
Yeah, I'd like to
I'd
know
like to
what
know
your
where
thoughts,
you guys stand on it.
where you stand on this issue, so that there is an election coming up.
Here's my concern, and I've voiced this to a couple other commissioners. You're asking for the 4,000 feet going west.
That's what we're asking for.
That stretch of road has no approaches, except for maybe one or two, go to the boat ramp. There's no one living along that. So in the grand scheme of things, that stretch of road would really not qualify for a hard surface.
Well, how else are we supposed to get to our
I
house?
I understand. So you take into consideration, there's no one living there. Number two, additional work is gonna have to be done to cut down on the hills to make it a safer road. If we do that 4,000 feet, if we shave the hilltops, get it to more safe elevation, what will be next? Will you want us then to go north? That's my concern.
No.
If we
For now, we're
could
just asking
say,
for that.
if we could say, we'll do the 4,000 feet, and that's it, would everybody be happy? That's my question.
Well, it was on the 5-year plan 10 years ago, you know, to put oil all the way around there. And it lasted, I think, 3 years on it. And then it was gone. So, but the bridge was part of the problem at the time.
There isn't near the traffic across the bridge as there is running east and west.
Okay.
It isn't half. And they've been able to maintain that road pretty good going north and south because there isn't near the traffic. It still gets washboardy over by your place, Pat, but it's not near the safety issue as it is north and south. I mean, east and west. That's the safety issue.
So the 4,000 feet.
4,000 feet is what we're asking for.
Oh, eventually, I'm sure we're all gonna want to, you know.
Someday we'd like to,
Sure,
but I
that's
mean,
that's kind of
we would
foolish.
not be hounding you every day if you get that done, I'll tell you that right now, because
I don't know how many other cities.
At what point in time, that was
that.
blacktop at one time.
it was blacktop, that's all we
When
wanted,
did-
was
when did that-
blacktop back.
When did that qualify?
When it went to hell enough that was the only option, was to grind, like Dirk said, along with another 160 miles across the county. Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, you know, Dwayne, and all respect to your comments, but the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of miles out there of paved roads in the county that don't have approaches on them, and they lead to somebody's driveway, and as far as I'm concerned, this 4,000 feet is part of Brown County 13 that leads to Edmonds County, and it truly is part of what takes the folks to the major driveway that takes them to their homes, to their residence. So you've got it's a little different situation with that 4,000 feet than just a matter of not having approaches on it. I mean, it's a part of Brown County 13. My opinion is, should have never been ground in the first place. The grinding should have stopped at the, what number, 13, whatever it is, that goes north. That should have been improved rather than having been ground up. But it's done, now we gotta do something about it. I think it ought to be done.
Well, it was deteriorated to the point it should have been ground up, but to leave it in the state that it is a concern right now. So, you know for a fact the state's gonna have additional millings when they're done laying the asphalt?
I got a call into Bruce right now, and he was gonna get with Mark. I
Because they're
called him
winding up
this morning
putting,
because I tried to call him yesterday, but nobody was there, because they're closed.
because they're putting more asphalt down than what they took up, but are they using those millings,
Well,
are they bringing in fresh, or what are they doing?
All the stuff on the south side, that's all excess. The stuff on the north side is the wrap that they're mixing in with the new stuff.
Okay.
And I think they missed up on that. I think there's probably 5,000 ton of that's gonna be left over too.
Definitely something for us to look into, Dirk. If we would agree to do something on that 4,000 feet, I think we've had discussed that before. Would you reshape some of those high spots, or would you just overlay with the millings?
We'd probably have to look at the center line a little bit, make sure when you mill up a road like that, he's probably been building to try to put the crown back in it. Bruckner didn't used to do that, but Josh might.
So it'll take some shaping, but.
Yeah, a little bit of shaping. We'll look at we can look at the top of the hill.
But you guys are
It's gonna be tough on.
or would be content if we did something that held the dust down. You know,
Well, if you can
washboard.
held the dust down, but it'd be.
But not totally
we might-
rebuilding. You know, 'cause
I
if
don't
we did
think
13
we
days.
need to take the hills out. I was just in Washington, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there's no shoulders on their roads, and they are a lot steeper than we got there. If we had a paved road there, the dust is the problem. It's not the hills as bad as it is.
Got another question.
Okay, go ahead, Dennis.
Dirk, right now, who is it that's up on Brown County 5 doing the work that's there?
Eliza, you mean?
Yeah, Louisa. What would it take to have that same company do what they're doing there right now to prepare that road to have asphalt put on it.
That's what they did they already did, that process there. We just didn't put, additional material on it at that time.
So, as it is right now, what will happen to Brown County 5 in the interim before next summer comes along? I mean, is that something that if it was done to this road, to this 4,000 feet, how long would that hold up before pavement, asphalt would have to be put on that?
Like I said, we'd have to add a little material to it. But, you know, it's a gravel road again. I mean, I'm not sure what you're asking me.
Well, what are they putting onto that road as they're milling it now?
Nothing.
Well, what is all the moisture coming up then? Is it just?
Yeah, just water.
It's just water.
And when we combine it with that material that we use as base course that we make, with the concrete and stuff in it, then it just sets up like that.
Well, what would be wrong with doing that with that
Nothing.
road?
Nothing.
How long would it last if there was no pavement put on top of it after it was done?
It just, you know, we'd blade it again, it just depends. It's fickle. Sometimes it lasts a long time. If it's as much traffic as everyone's saying on there, it might not last as long. You know, it's just a way you restabilize the base and you relay everything out there.
Essentially what you need to do if you're gonna put any investment in a hard surface over the top of it to begin with. I mean,
Exactly.
it's so much smaller scale, but it's like the entrance to the fairgrounds. You know, that got dug out to 3-4 foot deep, put a decent base size into it, because it gets so much slope. So, you wanna stabilize that as much as you can to begin with, before you put something on top of it. But if there's millings that the state's willing to share with us, I think that's reasonable to see what we can do about getting some of that done. That's where I think that drainage part's really important, because it's the same thing with the base. If you get two spots that you know are gonna get soft, you know, you're just putting good money after bad after that. You gotta finish the drainage up, and if that helped, and we can go dress that up, get that drainage part of it cleaned up, and then get some sort of a surface over the top of it that'll be stable, whether it takes till next year or the year after, but go after it.
What's your thought, Dwayne?
I think we need to take a look and consider the millings. If there's millings available, I think we need to go with that option. And I guess I, for one, am willing to continue to listen to potential ideas from the highway department on what we can do to cut down on the
I mean,
amount of dust
I'll
and
be
safety
honest,
standpoint.
I'll put it out there, I'll throw 20 grand at it to get it paved, out of my own pocket, as long as you give me a slip that says it's a donation.
I don't know if you guys are looking at me, I'm not, you can barter with him.
We as a commission will
What's
take
your
that
thought,
into
Mike?
I think something needs to be done. I agree wholeheartedly. As far as trying to figure out where the money's gonna come from doing it, I think these are good ideas, good options. I think we need to work with the state, and if they've got additional millings, I think it's worth a phone call to find out if that's a possibility. You know, we've done different things, 8th Avenue, when we shut that down and just went to base and blotter out the east side of town, and there's parts of that that's gravel and not, but, you know, I think it definitely needs to be stabilized.
I think if we
I
put a
agree.
blotter on it with the amount of truck traffic, I just don't know how long it's gonna stand
No,
up.
that by itself won't
I
last.
mean, what you did over there by Brook Brown Bridge, that would be gone in
Right,
2 weeks, it'd
Right.
be just chunks.
right.
Not the right solution.
Well, I think if we got a plan to put, you know, some millings over the top of it, if we can stabilize it, I think Dennis has got a good idea. You know, go back in and mill that back up and relay it down so you've got a good consistent base, because I remember years ago when we did Prairiewood Road, we wound up pulling that out. We had everything from 6 to 26
Well, a
inches
really
of
good
asphalt
example
there.
is Brown County 6 South. Unbelievable how that has stood up after we milled it and let it go through the winter. Basically did the process to it that we're doing up at 5 right now. And, I mean, to me, that's the start right there. I mean, I think you can go along and dump millings on there, but don't you think they need to be mixed in?
Well, they can be, I mean, you could always mix them in.
Right, for a good solid base, and then you can put something on top of
And
it.
then you can put something over the top of it, and then you're gonna have a really, it makes an awesome binder, Dirk knows that.
So, I wanna propose something else right now.
I'm not a fan of putting the millings up there, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
without blending them, of course. You gotta get it somewhere near a spec.
Right.
You know, you can throw that on your road, we throw it on our road, we gotta pay a little attention to that. What I would propose we'll do today, just to make this go away and make this day hopefully finish on a high note, we'll go out and shake the road up right now and we'll tight blade it. And we'll prime it for right now. And basically it's your temporary surfacing that you'll get on a road project. It's quick and dirty, we can do it right now, we're shooting 70 in a couple other spots. So that'll take care of whatever short term. That'll also help accentuate wherever the soft spots are, because that prime will break up on it. It's not super expensive, it's gonna be way cheaper to do it now than, I don't like dust proofing, I'm not a fan of chlorine or mag and that stuff, because it's just,
The waste.
screws a whole bunch of stuff up. So, we can at least make this go away for a little while, and I'm not saying we can't revisit the topic and we'll look at all the suggestions that have been brought forth, but we'll go try to do that in the next couple of days. So, don't drive in the oil. You'll have one lane for half the day on that road, and then the other half.
Well, we can all go around to the north if we know when you're doing it.
We'll just do that all the time.
Just go that way all the time. Then that road will be destroyed. Come on, Dirk.
Okay, so only just to rephrase, not to make it go away, but to address the issue with what we can do.
Go away temporarily.
Now.
Well,
To try to
you
provide
know,
some relief.
And I guess I would ask too, that if you're gonna do that, check that drainage on the north side, directly on the south edge of the lagoon, and make sure that, I mean, the fence has to come out so you can, I'm sure you can't dig into the integrity of the berm itself, but somehow you need to get that cleaned up a little bit too.
Okay.
That, you know, I don't know if it takes a blade or what it takes, and take material out, I don't know, but it needs to be, and get that water moving, get it out of there.
Should there be an inquiry to the state parks, you know, if that's their land that borders that road, and to see what kind of cooperation?
Yeah, can we get any help out of it?
Can we get some help from them?
My experience is, when we did that project, we had to take everything off the other side of the road because they wouldn't work with us. And, I've yet to come to a scenario where they had money to bring to us. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but that's a relationship that's usually the other direction, which is very strange to me.
Are you talking about Game Fish and Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't that be their land?
We're usually doing it for
Yeah.
them.
So
Which
I'm not,
butts up
we can
against Richmond Sanitary Sewer Lagoon. It's all connected there, on the north side. Two owners. It's, South Dakota Game Fish and Parks, and then it's the water development, sanitary sewer
Yeah.
district.
Yep.
And I can't imagine there's any problem with the sanitary sewer district for what you folks wanna get accomplished there. And I don't understand why Game Fish and Parks, they got money. I mean, it's just a matter of where they wanna spend it.
Both dogs.
Sounds like we have a
Yeah,
reasonable
both.
short-term solution today
Yep.
that will at least address part of the issue. It'll be an ongoing discussion I know that we'll have, so short-term solution will hopefully make it a safer road. Sound fair enough to everyone?
Yeah, and if you're gonna revisit it in the spring again, then give us a call or something.
Either in the spring or as we work with-
I just made my offer, and it holds.
We appreciate it for now, we're not gonna take
Appreciate that,
advantage of other things.
And as we get plans from the state on how they're gonna handle the Richmond dam,
Right.
that may be another option to have them partner with something up north if they designate that as a detour.
Well, because I think, doesn't South Dakota Game Fish and Parks have some, I don't know who owns the Richmond Dam, if it's School and Public Lands or...
School and Public Lands.
It's not South Dakota, Game Fish and Parks has no
Right.
holding in that dam whatsoever.
Okay.
Provide you some relief.
Okay?
Okay.
Thanks everyone for coming in, we appreciate you taking time.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
Hey,
Appreciate
How are
it.
you?
how you doing, old man?
Yeah, that's right.
Get warm.
Dirk, anything else? Nope. All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Approval of the general meeting minutes of
Move.
October
Second.
24th.
Motion by Pikert, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report?
Motion by Weiss, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Quarterly interest?
Motion by Weeks. Second by Pikers. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
How's your wife doing? Is she doing all right?
Judy had requested an executive session. We have 4 minutes before our department head meeting.
I talked to her, we wanna wait till next week.
She's okay with that? Okay, all right. Anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning? Any other business? Ross, anything you,
Yeah, get her on that tractor.
any new word on the relocation of the sewer line out there? You heard any updates?
I haven't heard back from them yet.
Okay, all right.
Let her know last week.
Okay. Is there anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Pfeiffer, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.